right, good Monday afternoon. This is Will Cain Country, and I'm filling in today. I'm Johnny Joey Jones. First of all, I'm excited to be here. I know this is normally a Texas-based show, but we're coming to you live today from the good state of Georgia. I'll say more about that when we hit college football later. Listen, we have a fun show today. We've got some incredible guests. The producers, I'm telling you, Two-A-Days Dan, Tenfold Pat, they do a good job because they got me some good guests today. We've got Sheriff Mark Lamb. That's America's Sheriff, my buddy. We've got probably the hottest author in fiction. I mean, arguably nonfiction, somebody else has that title, but probably the hottest author in fiction today. We've got the one and only Jack Carr, who just happens to be a Navy SEAL. And I guess I can call him a friend. I like him. We talk. But listen, you're streaming live on Fox News on the Facebook page, foxnews.com. We've got the Fox News YouTube channel. And if anything else, listen on terrestrial radio across the country. And then it's on demand on Apple and Spotify. Pretty much, if you can listen and see it somewhere, that's where Will Cain Country is. So I'm excited to host today. We've got some really cool topics. I was talking to the producers before the show, and they're like, not a lot of news. And then 5 minutes into the conversation, it's like, well, there kind of is a lot of news. We've got the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. She says that Obama, the admin, manufactured Russiagate. Are you kidding me? So that's kind of a cool story. Is it safe to fly? I don't know. I think it is. I fly almost every week, more than I want to, but some stuff happened over the weekend that are making all of us question that. We've got the WNBA. So if you're not sure what that is a women's basketball league, kind of like the NBA, but it's women playing. Not a lot of people show up to the games very often, but that's changed in the last year. And because of that, they're saying, hey, we want more money. They even made cute little T-shirts that says, pay us what we're owed. And then probably the biggest story of the day, I would imagine, is that In-N-Out Burger, the best chain food restaurant in the state of Texas, which is also located in California. Some of you picked up on that. They're going to move to the free state of Tennessee. So Governor Newsom's reaction to that and what that means for the rest of us on the East Coast who have been absolutely begging for an In-N-Out Burger for a really long time. But we're going to start with the top story. This is a sad story. Hopefully, it's not ending tragically because he's in recovery. There's a Customs and Border Patrol agent that was off duty and was shot in the face in New York City. Guess what? By an illegal immigrant. Yeah, that's the top story today. Probably the least surprised person in the world on this story because he spent half his career in a border state is Sheriff Mark Lamb. I call him America's Sheriff. He's my buddy. He's in my book. We'll talk about that. But let's go ahead and bring him in. What's going on, Sheriff? How's it going?
I'm doing good, Joey, man. Thanks for having me on. It was when they called me, I was like, heck yeah, I'll do the show with Joey.
You know, I love this show. I love Will Cain, by the way. And the last time I was on his show, I gave him crap about his cowboy boots because he was talking about Lucchese's. And I'm like, listen, we're not wearing Lucchese's hanging out on the farm. I'm wearing a hat today. You're wearing your cowboy hat today. I will tell you this. You and Will Cain rate to wear a cowboy hat. I do not. I couldn't do it. It looked like a sack of potatoes. And I appreciate you coming on the show in full regalia for the show today because it is a good show and I'm excited to have you on. Listen, this story, I want to play this video. We were prepping the show while Kristi Noem and Tom Homan were giving a press briefing on this story in New York, and I really want to get your thoughts on it. Let's listen to Kristi Noem and what she had to say about it.
Nunez, a Dominican national that was entering into this country illegally back in 2023. He was then released back into this country by the Biden administration. Miguel Francisco Moro Nunez and has a rap sheet that is a mile long. He was arrested. He was charged with grand larceny and also assault. The state of Massachusetts has an active warrant out for him for armed robbery with a firearm. He also has many other charges against him, such as kidnapping and witness intimidation. There's absolutely zero reason that someone who is scum of the earth like this should be running loose on the streets of New York City. He was arrested 4 different times in New York City, and because of the mayor's policies and sanctuary city policies, was released back to do harm to people and to individuals living in this city.
That's insane to me, Sheriff. I mean, I'm looking at the article right now. He's 21 years old, and at 21 years old, he's got a bench warrant in the Bronx now, obviously, but he was arrested for stabbing and robbery, and the Biden administration said, nah, just put him back out there, let him hang out with folks.
Yeah, and he came through the border in Arizona And obviously the processing piece was so weak that they said, yeah, we'll give you an asylum claim from the Dominican Republic. That doesn't exist. That will never hold up in court. But they released him, and then he became a criminal here. My guess is he was probably a criminal in his own country. Now he became a criminal here. Joey, you in Georgia, me in Arizona, if we committed half the crimes that this guy was wanted for, you and I would be rotting away in a jail right now. But because of these sanctuary cities, they continue to release him and put him back out on the streets. And now because of the actions of bad government, we have an agent who was off duty, a CBP agent who was shot in the face. And mind you, one more thing. This is, if there was ever an indication of why the Second Amendment exists, this is it. Thank goodness the guy had a gun of his own. And, we need to make sure that we're carrying. Look, things are getting dangerous because of the Biden administration letting all these people in.
Yeah, tell me about that. That's something I've always found interesting. He had a gun. The off-duty agent had a gun. I've seen the video, and it's not great, but there is a video of what happened. And so after he was shot in the face, I understand he pulled his firearm and ended up shooting a guy in the leg. Obviously, he's been shot in the face. I mean, that's crazy to think he even got around into the guy. Is there a chance that saved his life, that he did get around into the guy that shot him?
Well, absolutely. What little you can see from the video, it's not a great video, but it looks to me like they are in a little bit of a gunfight. You probably recognize it too. They're popping up over the rocks. And I think they came on to rob him. Based on what I'm understanding, I talked to my good friend Arto Cueto over Border Patrol. Sounds like maybe they were trying to rob him. He was off duty just at that park. And these two criminals and thugs, and like Kristi Noem says, scum, they shouldn't have been here in the first place. They show up, they try to rob him. He manages to get his gun, whether it's pre getting shot in the face or post getting shot in the face. His ability to pull his gun is ultimately what probably preserved his life, scaring off those guys. And I understand that they have arrested both of them, so that's good.
Yeah, I think it looks like he's in recovery. I mean, I don't know what it's like to get shot in the face. I know what it's like to get blown up, but to be making decisions, while you feel like your life is dwindling away. Man, that's a hell of a spot to be in. And the fact that we live in a country where somebody was off duty, like maybe on a date with a female, and there's a dude here that's already robbed somebody, already assaulted somebody, stabbed somebody, and they walk up on you. I guess what I'm getting at is in New York City or Arizona. I mean, Americans, we deserve to not just literally be in fear for our lives 24/7, and it just makes me feel like that's what the past administration put us in.
Oh, absolutely. Not only did they allow all of these illegals to come in, if you look across the country, a lot of these blue cities, these sanctuary so-called cities, they were also tolerating crime from Americans as well. You take California, they were saying you can go in and rob a store and steal up to $951. Their actions were absolutely lining up with their words, which was, we're not going to hold criminals accountable. And so we just saw crime rise all across this country. And in particular, in those blue cities, we're seeing more and more crime, and Americans ultimately become the victims. So it's not just people here illegally. That has been a big portion of it too, but it's American citizens that are not being held accountable, and government not treating criminals like they should be treated.
You bring up sanctuary cities because that's what New York is. I believe the New York City Police Commissioner today said we have to look at these sanctuary city laws, which is, it's an appointed position, and the politics in New York favor, I guess, Democrats. I mean, we've got a socialist that hates Jews that's about to be mayor, so that's where New York City is. But if you take this from one coast to the other, from top to bottom, sanctuary cities in this country, I think the numbers are getting a little smaller, and I think Americans are losing their faith in the idea that it's for the greater good. Tom Homan was also at this press conference. I don't think anybody talks more straightforward than he does. I want to listen to what he had to say and get your reaction.
I'll say it again, sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. And I'm going to work very hard with Secretary Noem to keep President Trump's promise and his commitment several weeks ago that sanctuary cities are now our priority. We're going to flood the zone. You don't want to let us into jail to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of a jail. You want to release him into the street, which makes it unsafe for the community, makes it unsafe for the officer, makes it unsafe for the alien. Anything can happen on a street arrest. So what we're going to do, we'll have more agents in New York City to look for that bad guy. So sanctuary cities get exactly what they don't want, more agents in the community.
You know, I want to talk about that part, Sheriff. You don't want to let us do it the safe way. You don't want to let us in the jail. So we're going to have to do it on the streets, which, I mean, we saw what happened in L.A. I mean, they're going to take advantage of that. They're really in a damned if you do, damned if you don't position in some of these places like L.A., like New York, where it's like these city leaders know what they're doing. They're putting these federal officers in an impossible situation to keep people safe, get bad people off the streets because they're not cooperating with them. We'll get to more of this in a minute, but you talk about in the book, Behind the Badge, you talk about the constitutional responsibility of a sheriff. If you're a police chief or a sheriff in one of these sanctuary cities and you don't believe in this, how does that work? Do you have legal authority? I guess it depends on the state, but explain to us what risk you're taking if you do work with the federal officers, or if you're legally absolutely cannot.
Well, you're seeing it right now, Joey, in LA. And I'll start by saying we were a 280. Our jail was a 287G jail, which means that we work with ICE. So if somebody gets arrested for a crime, an Arizona crime, so they commit a crime in Arizona, we charge them, they come to our jail, we determine that they're here illegally, we notify ICE, and that is the 287G program. We hold them until ICE comes and pick them up. I work with the FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, as a law enforcement advisor now. I love it because what we push is more 287G jails across this country. And what that does is that allows ICE to come in and pick these people up in the safest manner possible. And guess what? We're picking up the criminals, the people that broke the law here in this country, and they are in a jail in this country. Now you get to these sanctuary cities where they're not upholding it, where they don't have a 287G, and you go to California and maybe Illinois, where they've passed laws that says that you cannot work with ICE. Then you get what's happening in LA. You have local law enforcement saying, we don't know what to do. Do we help our federal partners? Do we not? Are we breaking the law if we do? I mean, this is the challenge that it puts law enforcement in on a federal level and on a state level. And we're seeing it play out right in front of our eyes right now. And it's failing miserably in places like California, who claim, or LA, where they claim to be a sanctuary city. And I know from talking to guys, the frustration level on the local side is off the charts because they want to help their federal brothers and sisters, but they're also concerned that they might violate a state law and be held accountable, because this government will hold the cops accountable, not the criminals. That's how LA operates.
Let me play devil's advocate here a little bit. I don't think it's a secret that we're conservative people. All about states' rights. I think the best issue that we've seen on this federal rights versus states' rights is marijuana, pot. You and I may disagree even on where those things land as far as the decriminalization of marijuana in certain states, and the fact that to date, at least, the federal government hasn't cracked down on that or hasn't tried to sue those states. I don't know what the legal process would be, but I guess it would ultimately go to the Supreme Court to decide if a state gets to say, no, you can't work with illegal immigration or with immigration officers. So, in other words, if you're a constitutional conservative, do you have to just accept things the way they are when states do things you don't like? Because don't you want states' rights to trump federal power? Or how do you reconcile that?
And that is a tough challenge. And that's what the government, local and federal, keep putting us in, especially as sheriffs. This is where this term constitutional sheriff comes up, because the sheriffs get caught in between of a bad state law and what is federal law or constitutional law. I am a states' rights guy. For example, let me give you, the marijuana is a perfect example. I am not pro-marijuana. I lost a 22-year-old son, an 11-month-old granddaughter, and my daughter-in-law were killed by somebody driving under the influence of alcohol and marijuana. But the people of the state of Arizona voted and said, we want to legalize this. As much as I don't like it, I also respect that the vote is what matters. That's how our republic works. Yeah. We vote on things and then it goes. Now, as far as how the federal government's concerned, I do not think that the federal government plays a role. But here's where the left gets caught in this. The left is the one that really pushed to define what the federal government's role was as it relates to immigration and border security. They basically said, you, the state of Arizona, you're not authorized to do it. So they've said, we're going to give all the authority to the federal government. Well, then if you're going to do that, then you have to stand by and let the federal government do their job as it relates to protecting our borders and enforcing immigration. The left found themselves fighting for something, and now it's biting them in the butt, because now they want to pass a law on the state side that gives them the ability to not let the federal government come in, but they're the ones that fought to say this is the federal government's responsibility. And so I'm like you, I'm a states' rights guy. I want to do the most I can to keep the federal government out, but there are pieces of law that the federal government is responsible for. Defending us from an invasion is one of those, and that includes not just the entry point, but that includes the removal part of it as well.
No, it is an interesting conversation. I mean, as I would absolutely love to see, sheriffs and police chiefs in LA or LA County or wherever they have jurisdiction go against some of these sanctuary cities and sanctuary state policies and work with federal agents, because ultimately I think it's going to save more lives. I mean, Tom Homan's right. It's putting people at risk, not just federal agents, but what if they get in a shootout with one of these guys trying to pick them up at Home Depot when they could have gotten them at a jail the day before, and then an innocent person's killed by a bad guy or a stray bullet? It really is irresponsible, but at the same time, where do we draw the line? I'm the one that says Lincoln came out on the right side, but he did it as a tyrant. Like I know a little bit about the history of states' rights, and so it's a tough.
Well, I can tell you, Joey, it is happening.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say it is happening. There are sheriffs that are standing up. We've got sheriffs in Washington that have said, hey, I'm going to keep criminals from being in my community. And then the state is now trying to prosecute or go after those sheriffs. We see it in California. The problem is that the media doesn't want to highlight those situations where the sheriffs are defying what the states have done in direct conflict of preserving law and order in our communities. And so while you may not see it a lot, there are a lot of sheriffs that are standing up. I wish more would, like you. I wish more would say, nope, we're not going to do it. You got to do what you got to do. That's honor. Honor is doing what is right no matter what the consequence. And I would love to see more honor back in this country.
Well, and it really is kind of a loop when you think about it. Federal government says these guys are here illegally. We're going to round them up, get them the hell out of here. State or city government says, no, we're sanctuary. But then that sheriff, if it's a sheriff, that's an elected sheriff. They're executing the will of the people. And so it almost goes more local at that point. And now you've got the federal and the more local. So it's something that may end up, I guess, going to the Supreme Court. I don't know exactly how it would work, but I feel like as long as there are states like California and New York that don't want to address it, and there are people like yourself that are willing to, it's a fight. And it's a fight we shouldn't have to have. And I hate it. Now we've got a guy sitting in a hospital who's just trying to be on a date and was robbed by an absolute menace to society that should have never been in this country to begin with. If nothing else, man, I hope they throw the book at this. He's 21 years old. I hope he's close to 3 digits before he gets out of jail and gets deported. I hope they put him in jail for life, because he tried to kill that man, and he's tried to apparently do it a time or two before. I do want to talk about this. Listen, I get to sit in Will's seat for a change and host the show. It's a lot of fun.
It looks good too.
But we did. Yeah, don't tell him that now. But we did do a book last month called Behind the Badge, and you're the closing chapter in the book. And I was talking to my sister-in-law yesterday, and she goes, the last chapter, Mark Lamb, that's the one that really resonated with me. And she's a principal, and she's like, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was because you were focused on the process or the principle of it. I can't remember. It was something with a P. But what she said was basically, when you talk in the book about how you took your job and you said, I'm not going to react. I'm going to be proactive. I'm not going to allow these kids to ruin their lives. I'm going to go get them before they do. And by the way, that makes my community safer. I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a law and order guy, but I'm also a community guy. I've always looked for the best opportunity and the best way to make my community better, to protect constitutional rights. And what I saw was a lot of children getting in trouble for kind of just mistakes that you make as a young child. And we were holding them accountable, and then they would go follow them with them their whole life. And so I decided to go to the county attorney and say, hey, look, I want to put something together. I want to find something that I can help these kids, because two things were happening. One, they would say, I'm a bad kid because I made a mistake. And number two, the police are the bad guys because they held me accountable. So we wanted to break both of those things. And so I went to California and to different places, looked at different programs, came back and said, look, I'm going to put together the Sheriff's Youth Redirection Program. And instead of sending them through the court system or through the county attorney, we would then take them and do like an internal citation where I, the sheriff, would get my hands on them, and we would go through a whole course. We would talk about drugs, goal setting and planning, social media, the dangers of sexting. We would talk about drugs and alcohol, and then we would do a career night.
She talked about that. By the, she's a middle school principal, and she talked about that. That's where we are in our society. It's crazy.
And it was so successful. We had over 200 kids go through the program, and we had less than 5 reoffend by the time I finished my time as sheriff. It was a very successful program, and what we broke through were those two things that said, we would tell the kids, you're not a bad person. You just made a mistake. Your parents made mistakes. Everybody in this world makes mistakes. What we want to make sure is you don't do it again, and we don't want these mistakes to compound and become actual hardcore crimes. And so it really was effective. The community loved it. The county attorney's office loved it because now we reduced their load with juveniles, and the parents loved it because their kids had a second chance at life. And then we also developed a relationship with these kids where they could have actually gone the other way and hated police, but we turned that around. So very successful program. But I believe that that's what leaders and communities are supposed to do, is figure out ways to make their community better. And that's what I did as a sheriff. I tried to do that.
No, when we did the book, when we did the chapter, I didn't know what you were going to talk about. I just know that you have served your community, you've been through some tragedy, and you have a message. And when that became, to me, the most interesting part of your chapter in the book, it made me think, like, how many, like, you're not in the elected office right now. Can you package that and take it to other municipalities? Are you trying to do that? Is that kind of on the radar for you?
For years, I started that program in 2018, right after I became the sheriff. And I really tried to push this across the country to say, hey, sheriffs, if you have any idea. A couple sheriffs took me up on it. Now, every sheriff is just a little bit different, and their relationship with their county attorney is a little bit different. And so it's going to vary from place to place. But I think on the whole, most sheriffs have the authority and the ability to go through and create a program like this. And for any sheriffs out there listening, or any chiefs of police that are willing to work with their city attorneys that want to know more about this program, I'd love to help them, because I think getting our youth right and sending them in a better direction than many of them are going is really going to be paramount for how our society looks in the next decade, 2 decades. And so, I would love to help more sheriffs across this country do it. And I think that we have the recipe for it.
Don't you find it interesting that we're sitting here and we're conservative? We believe in law and order. A lot of what the Democrats have done in the last 10, 15 years is this idea of excusing people's bad actions based on the adversity they faced when they were younger. And here you are as a conservative leader, a law enforcement officer, acknowledging just that, the adversity, and maybe they didn't have good parents, and all these reasons that Democrats use to excuse bad behavior. And you're saying, well, we can acknowledge it, and we don't have to put them in jail forever, but we can still tell them it's bad behavior. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? Like we're told that good grammar is white supremacy. Like it can still be bad behavior even if it's not your fault.
What we've done in society is now if you make a mistake, we want to explain away the mistake for you. And what we should be doing is saying, you made a mistake, and this is why this is a mistake. This is what good parents do. They say, you're in trouble, you made a mistake, but we're not going to dwell on it. We're going to move forward. We're going to try to be better. We're going to look at how we fix that portion, how we get you on a different path. And so what I tried to do is take that same philosophy that I would have implemented as a father, and I tried to implement it in my community. Look, I had a son that was in drugs at the same time. And so I knew how frustrated it must have been for parents. My son was beyond the age when I started this program. And so I really felt, the pain that parents go through with this. And so I tried to implement that. And you're right, I'm a conservative, but I had programs in my jail that were very, very socially people-minded, humanity-minded. And that's why when the left comes out and says the things they say, I just ignore it, because for one, like Morty says, your boos mean nothing because I've seen what you people cheer for. And number two, I don't see them over here in the arena with me trying to fix the problem. They just want to sit off to the side and be the peanut gallery. And it's just, look, I've been actually in the trenches fighting, and I've done programs that work, and I've done things that don't work. And so I've tried to just share that and do what I can to better my community. And I think we were successful on a lot of levels.
I think one thing that we know works is when somebody comes in the country illegally and they shoot a Border Patrol officer in the face, that's a wake-up call, man. I mean, it really is. I mean, all the things. I mean, that Laken Riley's dad's a friend of mine. We actually had a connection that goes way back. We didn't realize till after her tragic death. And listen, Trump's been elected twice now on this issue, if you ask me. You worked in it firsthand when you were a sheriff. And at some point, Democrats have to get on board. They really do. I mean, the country's there. Why can't New York and L.A.? Sheriff Mark Lamb, thanks so much for joining us, brother, and thanks for being a part of the book, man. I really do appreciate it. The book's doing well, and that's in no small part because you're willing to be vulnerable. Tell us about things in your past I had no idea about, being in Beirut, or not Beirut, but Panama when things went crazy down there, trying your hand at business, then working on a reservation. I mean, man, you've lived, you're a cat, man. You got 9 lives, and you're only halfway through, so I'm waiting to see what's next.
Well, I'll tell you what, just real quick, for any veterans and police officers out there, I just launched a new business called 107consulting.com, TEN7consulting.com. We help law enforcement and veterans, especially those that are retiring or retired. We help you launch your business. We have videos that teach you all about business. We have videos that want to give you purpose. We see a lot of veterans committing suicide. We see a lot of police that die within, the average police officer dies within 5 years. It's because we need more purpose for these guys, and we're helping them build businesses, give back to the communities, but also do something for their families now. And so please go check it out, 107consulting.com. Let us help you. And I just wrote another book called 10-7, When Your Shift Ends and Your Life Begins. And so thank you for having me on. My book won't do near as good as yours. Your book killed it, brother, and it's an awesome book.
Well,
and I hope everybody goes and reads Behind the Badge. But it's an honor to call you a friend. I appreciate your service to this country. And thank you for amplifying my voice in some way.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, send me a link to your book. We'll put it up. I'll put it up on my social media and make sure people know about it. I need a copy of it. I need you to sign me a copy because I want to read it. I'm trying my hand at owning businesses, and it's not fun. So I need some mentorship on that, brother.
I'll send over a bunch of copies to you. And God bless you, brother. Thank you.
Take care, man. I appreciate you. Sheriff Mark Lamb, everybody. Great human being. Talked about some stuff, not a lot of people know that he lost his son and his son's family in a drunk driving accident. And he's still out there preaching a good word, doing good stuff. So he's a great guy. I'm glad he's in the book, and I'm glad he joined us. Listen, this is Will Cain Country. I'm a fill-in host. I'm Joey Jones today. We're going to be right back. All right, welcome back to Will Cain Country. I'm your host today, Johnny Joey Jones. You guys can just call me Joey Jones. I think it's almost legal now. I have to go by Johnny Joey Jones, but we'll drop the Johnny today. I'm just Joey. Man, that was a good interview with Mark Lamb, guys. I appreciate you guys setting that up. This next guest, I'm surprised he was willing to come on a day I'm here. I figured he'd wait for Will to be back. I know him. He sends me his books sometimes when they're just getting released, so I'll post about them. An absolute, just one of the most impressive human beings. We're talking about a Navy SEAL who becomes an author. Not just an author, but I mean, you got Tom Clancy, Patterson, then you got Jack Carr, and you got everything he's written. I'll be completely honest with you, it's hard for me to read anything anymore, but what this guy puts out is just a lot of fun. It's entertaining, and if you don't want to read it, well, they turn them into TV shows. So we're going to bring in now Jack Carr, author. He's on the set right now, actually, of one of his shows. I think I'm trying to make notes here because I can't keep up. I mean, you have sent me a couple of books, and I'm halfway through, I think, the second one you sent me. And then now the book that's out now is Cry Havoc. Is that right?
That is coming out in October, and it's I guess you
Okay.
could call it a prequel, but it's the father of my protagonist, James Reese, and it goes back to 1968 Vietnam and shows how he goes from a SEAL assigned to
Oh,
MACV
that's
SOG
awesome.
to Laos, and then his transition into the CIA. But it's really an espionage thriller set in Laos, Saigon, Bangkok, Moscow, Washington, D.C. And that was a crazy one because you have to write every single sentence through the lens of 1968, which ended up taking a lot
Yeah.
longer than I anticipated. It was supposed to come out in June, but because all of that research took so long, it's coming out October 7th.
Yeah, I mean, just think of like the cultural references you can't use in a book like that. That really, how do you even put yourself there? I mean, you might be a little bit older than me, but you're not 1978 adult older than me. Like, how do you put yourself there? How do you just have a lot of good friends that help with that? How do you do that?
I did. I talked to a lot of Vietnam veterans that were in MACV SOG, and I thought that I had a solid foundation as far as, well, the history of warfare, but specifically Vietnam, because coming up in the 80s, that was, well, the cultural references and impacts were in movies and TV shows and books had protagonists with backgrounds from Vietnam, either as like Marine snipers, Army Special Forces, Navy SEALs, CIA paramilitary officers, things like that. So I thought that I had a fairly good understanding of Vietnam, and then I started doing the research. And I realized that I'd really only scratched the surface. But what made it take so long is that every character can only have their experience up to 1968. So that perspective has to only come from someone, let's say, born in 1945, 1950, like that sort of a thing, rather than having 55 years of hindsight since 1968 to go back. So I had to try to keep everything, every perspective through the lens of 1968, not leap forward. So it was, it took a while, but it was amazing. It was an incredible experience. I learned a ton.
I mean, we got so much more to talk about, but that's so interesting to me because, now I can sit and watch the Turning Point series on Netflix, and it's like addressing the Cold War and all this that we know today that maybe I don't know if it was suspected then or not. And really, like what was conspiracy then versus what is known as fact now, and what was someone's mindset? Like, what did a conservative person think in 1968 versus a conservative person today? I mean, we have Republicans and conservatives voted for a president that said no new wars because of Iraq. And in 1968, the majority of conservatives probably still supported Vietnam. And it's like, and that war. And it's like, well, then just go back 10 years from now and where were conservatives in supporting the war? And it's just this idea. I bet you had so much fun, but I bet it also challenged you to kind of maybe not reevaluate, but hone your own political or maybe even larger than political, like worldview.
It definitely did. And now, going 55 years forward and having that benefit of hindsight and declassified documents and perspective. All of that wasn't available to somebody in 1968. They only had the information available at the time and their life experience up to that time. So, but it did. And finding out things that were, let's say, kind of accepted just because we've heard it so many times, like you just mentioned about conservatives supporting the war still in 1968. And then you have Nixon running on this platform that left it kind of ambiguous. He was a genius as far as it went when it comes to communication, because you could really take from what he said whatever your perspective was, and it was fascinating to look at that election and everything that happened afterward, of course, as well.
Listen, I consider your work to kind of transcend partisan politics. I know that you don't like hold your political beliefs in a lockbox, but I mean, you work with mainstream Hollywood, and you work with everybody that wants to read something other than what we're dealing with in the moment. But you're also a smart guy, and you're a student of history. And I think this topic I want to bring in absolutely connects with what we're talking about with this perspective, looking back. We talk about what was a conspiracy in 1968 versus what is reality today. And the news of the day is that Tulsi Gabbard, someone you and I both know, and I think we would say respect, somebody posted a flattering tweet about her the other day, and I'm like, you're just scratching the surface, man. Like, she's a real deal. But she's come out and she said, listen, she believes from the documents and the intelligence and how the intelligence was moved forward that at the very worst, the President Obama's administration manufactured what we now call Russiagate, and at the very least, they threw it out there in a way that was misleading. And, I'd love just your opinion on it, or your take on it, your perspective on it, having gone through this process of a Kennedy administration, a Nixon administration, a Johnson administration, and learning all that we know about that, and all that they did well and bad in writing this book, and now it's like we're living through it.
Well, there's so many similarities in that there's a gigantic bureaucracy. And there was then, there is now. It's even bigger now, more dependent on government even now. The government has more, and not just the government, the media also has different ways they can manipulate thoughts and behaviors through devices we carry around in our pockets constantly. So there's differences in technology and how to manipulate a populace, but some of those same principles apply, is that you really are manipulating a populace. And when people talk about the deep state, maybe there is a deep state, but maybe it's just this gigantic bureaucracy with entrenched people in there who have biases and have agendas that don't change out with administrations oftentimes. We're seeing a little more of that now. But really what Tulsi did last week to release these documents to the public, not just a paper that says this is what we have in these documents. No, you can go out there and you have to do the work and you have to read through these things, but they are publicly available to all Americans right now. You can go out and you can read them and you can see what happened. And what's interesting is that the people's attention spans today, if this had come out, let's say in the late 60s, mid 70s, I think it would be different because people could go into those documents, could spend time reading them, and weren't distracted by the next thing, whatever that is, from these devices that are made to keep us from doing that deep research or that deep thinking. And it's not even that deep thinking. It's just taking an hour to read something. And that today is very difficult to get people to do. But what it really is about trust in our elected representatives and trust in the system, those entrenched bureaucrats that are in there that are supposed to be working for us, who we are paying, who are our employees, essentially manipulating and undermining a presidency in advance of a new president taking office. And people are saying that it is one of the biggest scandals in American history, and they're probably right. But we have to go in there and do the work and read these documents to really understand what happened and how that did undermine a presidency. And the credibility of the intel services, once again, that we pay for. So there are a lot of different facets to this, and hopefully we don't get distracted by the next big thing too quickly, and remember this and make some changes because of it.
I love that I threw it out there to let you go where you wanted to with it, because I think you're probably smarter than me, and I see things sometimes at a surface level, but it's like the headlines are going to be President Obama spies on Trump, or President Obama, creates Russiagate for Trump. Really what you're talking about is kind of the underlayer below that, this idea that like all of these intelligence officials that came out in support of it, or all these intelligence officials that pushed it along. And so then my question to you is, as a guy who's researched our intel community probably as much as anybody, I mean, I don't know how many spooks you got on a Rolodex, but I feel like you probably know a few from all levels. Where is our intelligence community? I mean, are they a net negative? Or all they do is start wars for us? Or are they a net positive? They keep the enemy at the gates? Like, what is your opinion on that?
Well, if it's put to me that way, I would say net positive, of course. Because,
all right.
But people are fallible. These institutions are manned by people who are fallible. We all are, and these are just people in these positions. And a lot of times, these people that we're talking about are that we didn't elect them; they were appointed to these positions. And they went in front of Congress, they answered a few questions, and some were tough, and some were softball. It's fine. Then they get into these positions. They just have to get through it. But they're essentially appointed by that person who is in who's in the Oval Office, or by that administration, or through recommendations from those close key advisors. So I would say it's still a net positive, because you had a lot of great people that are working there for the right reasons, that want to come out, they want to serve their country. Maybe they do it in the military, maybe they do it in intelligence service, maybe they do it in law enforcement, maybe they do it in a federal law enforcement capacity. But a lot of people are in these positions that want to serve their country and do the right thing. But just like in any institution, military included, there are people along the way that are careerists, or that have an agenda, or that think it's their responsibility to undermine this great evil, in this case, Trump, and anything that makes anything not only possible, but like a job requirement essentially for them. And so I think we saw that in this case, but from the highest levels all the way down, it really permeated, and all of those people seem to have connected on this to try to undermine a new presidency. So that, of course, is not what an intel community or the CIA specifically is there to do. Of course, they're there to gather intelligence, present that to the commander in chief, so that they can make decisions based on the best information available. And in this case, it seemed like they did the opposite. So in any big bureaucracy where that has a lot of power, obviously there is they can use that for ill, and that's what we saw in this case. But I'd say net, there's still a positive, but changes definitely need to be made, and we're doing that right now, like we saw with Tulsi and doing what she did on Friday. So the intel community is on notice.
I don't know if Tulsi's a Republican or a Democrat, but she's certainly a change agent. And, it's almost an oxymoron. Like, let's bring transparency to these clandestine agencies. But, I've never doubted really that the foot soldier of a CIA is risking their life and oftentimes losing their life for a cause they believe in. It's just that connection of, is the cause that they were given and believe in the will of the American people, and how do you connect those two things if it is so clandestine and is so, you can't trust anybody, so don't tell anybody. And, after 9/11, we learned that to the very least we have to talk to each other within agencies. Maybe after this, we learned that there does need to be some sort of open door, some way of knowing what's going on in a way that we shouldn't just default to distrust, not just our government, but especially those in these agencies that are keeping us safe. Or we could just, read your stuff, watch your shows, and gain an appreciation on a whole nother level and check out of it for a day or two. I think you're on set right now. Can you tell us about it?
I am. Well, I was going to say oversight is certainly a good next step. We always talk about oversight of these different agencies, but we're really seeing it now. We have people in place, I think specifically Tulsi, who wants to bring that oversight and that accountability to these agencies that have grown so large and so powerful. So I think that's a great step. But yes, I'm going to apologize for my background because I'm on in a hotel room and headed to set here soon. We have helicopters flying. We have things blowing up today. It's for the second book, True Believer. But I wanted to congratulate you on #1 New York Times bestseller and still on the list. I have multiple weeks on the list. So congratulations on the new book. That's fantastic.
Man, I appreciate it. I don't have the imagination for fiction, so I just tell other people's amazing stories. And in this book, I think it's an important one. It's about first responders. And I think the point I make is we're about 2 decades behind military on acknowledging what they go through and how we can take care of them. But you're on the set right now. So I know in Terminal List, you made a cameo and then were killed. So are we going to see you, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, make a cameo? Or I don't know what the set you're on now, but are we going to see you come back as somebody else and maybe die in another creative way?
I'd say keep your eyes peeled. That is a distinct possibility. We have the prequel origin story series drops on August 27th, and it's called Dark Wolf. And yeah, keep your eyes peeled in that one. And just perhaps it might tie back to something we just talked about a little bit earlier. So maybe I'll leave it at that because we're still a couple weeks out from the premiere.
Man, I love it. It's so awesome. I want to talk to you real quick. I mean, we got a few minutes left. You're a United States veteran, Navy SEAL. I'm Marine Corps EOD tech. And, we have platforms where we have an effect in media, you much greater than me. But what is your thoughts on not just the impact veterans have after service, but the responsibility they have to have an impact? I mean, people ask me, what can I do for a veteran? And I always say, expect something of them. Like, that's my first answer. What are your thoughts on that as someone who has gone in what I would consider most people to think is a completely different direction than learning how to kill people well and being creative and a student and a historian and creating fiction and doing all the things you've done? What is the impact a veteran can have, and how do we get them to have it?
Well, so there's a lot of overlap actually to what I did in the SEAL teams, what we did in the military, and what I'm doing now, and that we were aggressive problem solvers on the battlefield. And that's what I'm doing now, although the consequences are a lot less dire. If I mess something up, I can go back and edit it the next day, and that's fine. No one comes home in a body bag. But I'm still looking at how to capitalize on momentum. I'm still looking for gaps in the enemy's defenses. I'm still trying to adapt to, in this case, the publishing environment or a changing environment in Hollywood. But on the battlefield, we're trying to adapt to an enemy who's trying to adapt to us. And whoever does that quicker usually ends up on top. So there are a lot of similarities, not just to, and that's not just for what I'm doing now. I think that's just life in general, whatever you're going to step into after you leave the military. But what's interesting about people who have served, I think, is that they've invested, because this country gives us so much, gives us so many options and opportunities. No matter where you're born, what's given to you or not, from birth, you can make your own decisions, and you can forge ahead on your own path. And if you step into the military or law enforcement or whatever it might be, you're now investing in this thing called America. And a lot of people don't. They just take the options and opportunities, and that's wonderful. That's fine. But I think if you invest in it, then there's a different outlook on all of this, because you have put something in, whether that's a couple of years or it's 20 years or 30 years or anything in between. That's why I think that some sort of national service helps, because it gives us all something in common. Like, you were a Marine, I was a SEAL, but we share something in common, that we served, and we've invested in this thing called America. So for me, when people ask what they can do for a veteran, it's not really much you can do for a veteran. That veteran needs to be prepared for someone to extend that hand or to open that door, to crack it just a tiny little bit, and then it's up to them to kick it in. Nothing needs to be given, of course. But I think the most important thing is that we've invested, and that's a little bit of different perspective. I think in the late 70s or early 70s, I think we had the most amount of veterans serving in Congress at the time, and it slowly dwindled ever since. And I think that was important because those guys had invested, primarily World War II veterans back then, but they'd invested in this thing. So they wanted to hand it off to the next generation because of not just their blood and sweat, but the blood and sweat and the deaths of their friends, their teammates, who a lot of them are still over in Normandy and places around the world. So it's a little just different perspective, I think. So so it's not really what you can do for a veteran. I don't think about it in those terms, but more that hey, the veteran needs to be prepared to kick the door, and also look at that service as a foundation upon which to build. So you're not stuck in what you did in the past. It's more so, hey, like anything else, I'm building on this foundation, whether it was good or bad experience, good or bad, positive or negative, but it's still some sort of a foundation upon which to build. So cracking that door, and then veteran, it's up to you to kick it in.
Hey, real quick, this is kind of an off-the-wall question for you, but it's something that I'm figuring out for myself right now. I've got this farm that I call a playground. I've got a skeet shooting range. I'm about to put in some bow targets. You're a guy that understands history of war, but you also understand weapons. I mean, you kind of have to do the TV shows you're doing and not get just skewered in public. If somebody's out there and they want to learn a weapon system of any kind, I'm talking bow and arrow, compound bow, long bow, how to wield a sword or a knife, how to throw an axe, how to shoot a pistol, shotgun. Like, what is it? What would you tell somebody? Hey, go learn this skill.
Well, I think it's start off with that foundation, like we just talked about, like unarmed combat. That's a good place to start, because you're working on your body, you're working on your mind, you're problem solving, you're doing all those things, and then ramp it up from there. Because once you have that, you kind of get this other type of an awareness. Because really, as providers, as citizens, it's really up to us to protect the gift of life that we have, and then those that we love, our spouses, our children, our communities, our tribes, essentially. That's right. So I like that ramp up to the unarmed combat, having all be part of a greater mosaic that makes you better prepared, or better prepared to actually avoid a confrontation rather than jump right into it. But starting with that unarmed combat type, that jujitsu, that kickboxing, that MMA type stuff that you can find pretty much anywhere now. And then at the same time, or whenever one is comfortable, moving on into something, going to a gun site or a Thunder Ranch or somewhere like that, where you learn those skills with a pistol, and then you have the rifle and the shotgun, and you just become a more competent person, a more competent citizen, a more competent human being. Not that you're actually maybe going to use them, but you can. And that's really why we're here today, is because we had ancestors who were good at that. They were good at the fighting, and they were good at the hunting. And if they weren't, we would not be here today. And there's something like that. It's in our DNA. It's still there. A lot of people have suppressed it, or been told to suppress it by popular culture in general, but it's still in there. And it's good to listen to that call. Like, you had that calling to join the military. I had that call. We listened to that call. I had that call to write afterward. I look at them both as professions. It's a reason it's called the profession of arms, not the career of arms. Same thing with writing, what I'm doing now. I think there's a difference between a profession and a career. For people that want to get into it, I encourage them to do so, because that's a calling too. like I should know how to protect myself, this gift of life, and my family. How do I do that? Oh, here's my first step. And I think that's the unarmed combat and ramping up into these other skill sets with pistol, rifle, shotgun, bow, learning how to hunt. There's something about putting that food on the table for your family, providing for the family, something very natural about that. So if you suppress it, you're kind of suppressing a part of yourself.
Listen, you're a disciple for the truth. I appreciate you for it. You get to reach areas of our culture that, some like Fox News doesn't. And so thanks for coming on and connecting back with us. Man, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the work you're doing. Thanks for being honest and transparent with us, like we're asking for the government to be. And I look forward to everything with your name on it that comes out, because it's truly entertaining and educational at the same time. Jack Carr, thanks for joining, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. You take care. Talk soon.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. This is the Will Cain Country. I'm filling in. I'm Joey Jones. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back. All right, welcome back to Will Cain Country. I'm in today. I'm Joey Jones. If you've been listening or watching, it's been a great show. Sheriff Mark Lamb, Jack Carr. I want to go ahead and bring in Two-A-Days Dan and 10 Full Pat. I want to react to Jack Carr real quick, just a little bit. I said in the break, could you imagine thinking as fast as that guy talks and just what's happening in his head?
Oh man!
He's
million miles an hour. My brain doesn't even work that fast.
One of the biggest reasons I didn't write a book for a long time was I didn't think I could organize everything. Yeah. And so that's why I write the books I write, where it's like each chapter is its own story. And to write books 10 years ago, probably when he started, that he's going back and now he's telling you the backstory to that, and it all's interwoven. To me, it's like a Combat Arms Harry Potter. Like, it just keeps getting more and more intrigue. I don't know how somebody thinks that way.
I don't either. My mind doesn't work in like that big picture where you can just see everything at once. Like, you can see the beginning, middle, and end of a story that you just created from your mind. It's wild. It's based on experience, but yeah.
Pat, you heard the conspiracy stuff there. Like, that's something that you're keen in on.
Oh, don't get him started.
Do you think all this? Do you think Jack Carr's fiction is just the truth that we're not willing to admit?
Probably, but I am recovering. I'm not all the way bought in.
Theorist.
Yeah, I'm recovering.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I do. It was fascinating.
It's just someone waiting to say "I told you so," right?
Yes, that's absolutely true. That's the perfect way to put it.
Listen, I was wondering. I wanted to bring you guys in, and I'm looking down because that's where I can see you guys.
Yeah.
Because I kind of assumed you guys might have some matching T-shirts on today that say "Pay us what you owe us." I thought you guys maybe were like going to take a stand. Because I prepped with you today. I don't know what Will does. You guys do this whole show. Like, I just sat here and just kind of take your guidance. So, like, are you?
Well, thank you,
we're
Fox.
Looking at the WNBA.
I appreciate you.
I know, right? We're looking at the WNBA, and I don't know. Maybe you guys can relate. They're wearing T-shirts for their All-Star game. It says "Pay us what you owe us." Yeah. There it is. I'm not sure what they're owed though. Like, I'm not like going to just drag them for it. I make fun of basketball in general because I'm from a part of the country where you don't have enough pavement or asphalt to play things like that.
Dirt ball.
But before Caitlin Clark, I don't know that I could have named a WNBA player that wasn't captured by Russia. So, like, what are they owed? Like, how big of a deal are they? Are they a big deal? I don't know.
It's getting bigger. There's some money kind of coming into it more than there is. But, they don't generate enough revenue to justify getting paid more in their salaries. The only kind of caveat that there is I was looking up, the WNBA players only receive less than 25% of league revenue, which is pretty low. NBA players receive 50% of league revenue. So if you're talking about fairness, that could be one thing you would look at, that maybe that's what they're talking about with their own league revenue.
But the problem is they lost, like last year, they lost $50 million.
Right.
So, but they do have a new TV deal that's roughly about $260 million a year. So now they're starting to kind of make a little bit more money. Maybe they're starting to make a little bit of revenue. Maybe they're in a place where they can start having these conversations about having that equal share,
Right,
like the NBA players have.
It's kind of funny to me. We were talking earlier about how college football is in this weird spot, and it's almost like they're making the same argument college football players are making, but the difference is college football is they're just sitting on tons of cash, whereas
it's gross.
I don't understand how the money works, but the WNBA is not.
They need more people to show up to games to watch on TV.
That's the thing, right?
You just got to put butts in seats and eyes on TV. It's just a matter of economics, and it just has to happen. More support.
I'm looking at this note you wrote. It's like air travel, private air travel is 20 to 30 million. I don't think WNBA gets that, do they? Or anyway,
they complained. They complained a few years ago about the fact that they didn't get. They didn't get the charter like NBA teams did, and so they were actually paying them, which was ridiculous because they weren't generating any money at the time. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you want more air travel because apparently flying is dangerous now. I fly all the time, but we've got these. So this is just over the weekend. Let me talk about it. So a Delta engine catches fire. Okay. A Delta plane almost hit, I believe it was a C-130. It was a military aircraft over one of the Dakotas, like almost hits them. Maybe that goes back to not enough air traffic controllers. And then Alaska Airlines, apparently they just said, we're not going to do it today. The computer's not hooking up. We're done. We're just going to not work today. Are you guys afraid of air travel? Do you think people should be? I don't know. I think it's still a numbers game where I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I only fly Delta, and I feel like that gives me a little bit of an edge. But 2 of these 3 instances involve Delta, so I don't know.
What do you think, Patrick?
I apparently am going to be traveling soon. I'm definitely. I don't know.
This man loves Florida where he lives. He doesn't really leave much, so
drink a lot before getting on a plane. Now,
yeah,
I'm
hit
a
the bar.
little nervous.
A little Bloody Mary beforehand. I don't mind it. So I used to travel a lot for my job. I used to work in sports media. So I travel a lot, but then I haven't done it in a while. So when you don't do something that you forget about that fear and that anxiety you have a little bit. And so I flew down to Dallas a couple times this year, and the first one down, I was nervous. But the flight back, I was fine. Yeah. It goes away really quickly. You realize how many people fly. Will Cain used to fly up here every single weekend for Fox and Friends weekend. And, as long as Will can do it, I can do it.
As long as Will can do it, you can do it. You do it.
He's not doing it anymore.
If there's a will, there's a way. Not anymore, right?
He stopped that as quick as he possibly could.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's on to something. Maybe he's trying to tell us something. He's like, hey,
I'm not doing this.
Drive to work instead of fly to work.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe that's what I need to shoot him a text when he comes back. Listen, this was a fun show, guys. I really appreciate you letting me do it.
Yeah, of course.
There's another topic here I'd like to maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow because it might even be worth a guest. I mean, we're talking about In-N-Out moving from California to Tennessee. That's a big deal. I mean, that's almost as big as taking the FBI and spreading it across the country. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And listen, this is Will Cain Country, and I'm Joey Jones, just filling in. We'll see you tomorrow.